Good. So welcome everyone to another episode of KQLCafe. We had a longer summer break, disturbed also by some illness and delays, but we're glad you're back either now online or later in your replay. And as always, your hosts are Johnny and myself. If we go next. So as always, a little welcome. Then we give you some updates of what we have seen, what's new around. Go back. Yeah, what's new about updates that we see in KQL land. Then we have a guest today, Brian. He will talk about Jupyter notebooks. And last but not least, as always, we'll show you what we have been doing with KQL, some real world examples. And if you also have something you want to mention or ask, that's the time to do so. Good. So let's start with what's new. So first of all, what's new? This is a topic related to the Zeek integration. Short recap. Last October, November, Microsoft announced that they have ported the open source project Zeek into Windows. So basically, every Windows client and server that has Defender for Endpoint deployed, does have some pieces of the Zeek engine included. When Zeek was introduced, we could find those additional events in the device network events, but they were all, let's call it, encapsulated under the action type network signature inspected. And now we have actually some more transparency, meaning that they have changed the action types into some more meaningful names. So we actually know and now can distinguish between DNS inspected, SSH, NTLM, HTTP, etc. I personally, I'm still in the progress in digesting those by actually going back to the original Zeek documentation and to understand the individual attributes and the information that resides within those tables. I can mention one thing that I noticed, pay attention when you play with those tables. As always, in your device network events, we have the local IP and the remote IP. I noticed that sometimes the remote IP and local IP are in fact just the other way around. So when building detections, makes sense to take a close look at, what IPs do I actually get in one of those fields and whether they are actually the local IP of the system or the opposite. If we go further. So here's an example of the cool things that we can identify. There's also a inbound internet scan inspected. What I like about this one is there's now also a feature in Defender for Endpoint that actually automatically adds a tag to any device that is internet facing. But that tag might come a little bit later. When there's enough evidence that the device is actually internet facing. If you're looking at actually catching whenever a device that's not supposed to is communicating and gets an inbound scan, this might be an interesting detection rule or at least an observation rule might want to look at. The next one. This is a nice example also how Zeek basically extends our visibility. So here I was looking at FTP connections and then by basically, extracting the information out of that event, I was able to identify key pass files that were going to the internet. What you don't see here, but I then did a further mapping with those IP addresses against threat intelligence and was actually able to identify that those key path files were not going into a good location. So just to showcase the advantages of the additional visibility that we get through the Zeek integration.
I think what's also a nice feature is that you with the SSL inspection one. So I can show it for a second. Because
if you give me 1 second, I was just going to quickly share one more thing. Okay, let me quickly switch screens here. So exactly, here we go. And in fact, I'll talk about that later, but if we look into MDI Zeek through KQL search, here I've actually started to collect a lot of examples that I was able to pull out of the Zeek integration. So if you want to take a look at all the possibilities, if we go to the GitHub page directly, what I mentioned earlier, you here see a lot of examples for all the individual Zeek detections. Yeah, so it's now yours. Yeah.
Cool. So what I wanted to show is over here in the Defender, you have the device network events. One of the fields is SSL connection inspected. And in there, it shows all SSL connections. So you can monitor them in the way of, for instance, reading the certificates. Because if you go to here, I parsed it and then I grabbed the subject. And if we look at the subject to string, and these are all the certificates being used or from the server or from the client side. But as you can expect, if malware uses encryption, then there should be also a certificate of the malware in here. So if you use encrypted C2, you are most likely to find the used certificates in here. So that's one of the things I like most at the moment, because SSL you can't always decrypt, but you can at least view the certificates. That's a good one to keep in mind and to play around with. It's a bit hard if you want to view all the traffic and all the new certificates. So it's more of a hunting thing than rather a detection thing. But if you tweak it, you should also be able to maybe find some anomalies in here. That's my part.
Good. Let me add one more thing. Because I noticed I hadn't updated this correctly. So I mentioned before I was always going back to the original Zeek documentation. I've added them actually here. So for example, if we go to FTP, and then I basically linked it directly to the protocol configuration file and the script that's actually running. And in some cases, this might give you a better idea what the individual attributes are within the table. Another use case that I haven't prepared here, for example, that's also interesting, is the SMTP traffic. Yeah, knowing what internal email is still floating around. Think of monitoring systems, internal email servers that were set up back in the days that aren't secured, and now again, without actually knowing where they are, we can just search within the packet information of Zeek, and basically we get all the information we need to track down who might operate or where those emails are coming from, because within the SMTP inspected event, we see the from, we see the subject, we see the recipients, etc. So quite interesting, I think, in various ways that we now have these Zeek integrations. Yeah. Good, then let's continue.
Check. And then the next slides.
Yeah, another nice thing that we got is now the possibility to actually query for Azure resources. Until now, we had to go to Defender for Cloud or maybe a Logic app. And there are plenty of use cases. Gianni and I already spent a whole evening thinking about them, where it might be useful to actually combine Azure resource information, either purely, querying, doing queries on those, or actually mixing, Azure resources with log data. So if you haven't played with this, just go to any log analytics workspace and do this ARC resources thing. Now, it's not just the ARC resources. So while I was playing with this, I asked myself, well, there must be eventually more than just resources. And if you go on the last link that we have added here, you will actually find the Microsoft documentation. And then you'll be able to also, not just type doc resources, but extend that into other resource types. In this example, I am able to retrieve log analytics workspace information and actually see the daily quota. So it might be interesting, to monitor maybe as part of my log analytics Sentinel health monitoring, whether the daily quota is still set, to a certain minimum. Now, before we move on, I must mention that this has probably also to do with the permissions that you actually have, because as mentioned, in any log analytics workspace, I was able to enter ARC resources. But of course, can now anyone see everything? And the answer is no. It's not yet well documented. In those tenants where I was, I have at least reader permissions on the management group, so I will probably get a lot of information. It will be interesting to see how we can properly scope and do with this with permissions. The bad news currently is what I found, because we immediately had a ton of ideas how to create maybe also detection rules. Unfortunately, when you add a query into Microsoft Sentinel, you will pass the initial validation, but at the latest, when you want to save the analytics rule, it's going to fail, most likely because there's some incompatibility or it doesn't know how to handle this. But hopefully, this is just and maybe I don't hope it's by design. I'm not going to use the word bug, but I hope it's not by design, because as Gianni will show you later, there are a couple of nice use cases. So if we move on. Here is another example. So here, as you can see, I'm now no longer querying resources, but I'm querying service health resources. And we're basically able to retrieve the Azure Service Health. So, I mean, today we can do Azure Service Health. We can get emails. We can define an action group in Azure, to start doing something. But now I see also opportunities, because we're basically, if we can directly query them, and if hopefully at some point in time we can also create maybe information alerts about it, we will also be able to bring this information into Log Analytics or Sentinel. Good. Yeah, this is another one I created, and yeah, as someone pointed out correctly in Twitter, also the opposite could happen depending on the permissions that you have. What I'm doing here basically is a combination of the Azure Resource Graph query capability and actually looking at the ingestion that's happening on my Azure Activity Table. the Azure Activity Table is being populated because I do have a policy in Azure that says, stream activity data from this subscription or resource group, if I scoped it, into my log analytics. And very often what we see, unless there's a policy set at the management level in Azure, which is usually not the case, unfortunately. So very often what we see in reality is that, in companies, although they have set up the Azure Activity Monitor data connector in Sentinel, additional subscriptions might be created and people forget about adding them to the Azure Activity Monitor. So this is maybe a nice way to identify those, provided, again, that you see all those subscriptions.
So Sergey asks if there are any limitations on the number of resources to output. As far as I've seen during testing, I only encountered the 100 or 10K records from Sentinel itself, but I didn't notice any limitations in there.
I've just run it and I received like 1,000 resources, 1,000 logs. That's why I asked the question.
Okay.
Yeah. To be honest, I don't know, but if you look at Azure Resources, of course, I guess you would fine-tune your query anyway. So if you do, maybe you see it on the first slide. If you go one back, please, Johnny, or even two. Sorry. Yeah. What you might want to do to actually, because just querying for all resources might not be very efficient, but if you do ARC resources and distinct type, in this case, you will be able to see things like, okay, the virtual machines, the storage accounts, the API connections. By the way, side note, API connections I found very interesting because it helps me to identify possibly broken API connections that I have. And it also helps us to identify in which logic apps, for example, those API connections are linked, and that's something that today in the Azure portal you don't know. So for those familiar with the matter, if you type in API connections, you might see a whole bunch of API connections, and get good luck finding out where those API connections were used. And through the resource graph, we definitely have more capabilities. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Good. Next one. Go one back, please. Good. So next one we'd like to highlight is, we already have a couple of KQL related websites, but now there's KQL Query. And if I'm not mistaken, it was launched by Bert-Jan. Is that correct? Because I know Bert-Jan is on the call.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, so if you like, I didn't know you were coming, but if you like, you can leave a few comments and do some promotion on it.
Can say a few words about the website. I could. Yeah, I have created this. I think it's mainly just to share some information, because I think most of you are aware that I have a GitHub page and I have shared quite a lot of queries on there. But I felt like I should also share a bit more background on how to create the queries and what kind of resources you can use. Because query is one, but understanding the query is the second part. And that's mainly the goal of this website, to explain a bit more on the background of the queries, and also some more background on, for example, threat hunting case, and also share some queries on the site, which I think should help the community a bit. So I will try to post at least every week the upcoming weeks, and we'll see how far we'll get.
Cool. Well, already up front, many thanks for your endless contribution, and now also by launching this one. Yeah. So we have another very cool site which already did exist since a while, but this is now a beta version. It's called, if you go to beta KQLsearch.com, just check it with Ugur today. the inventor of this. And yeah, definitely take a look here. Search has improved the way how results are displayed. But even more cool, but I leave that to Ugur next time to showcase that. There's also a query generator supported by ChatGPT, or you can throw in your own queries and get suggestions on improvements. So I just gave it a little try last night. So like, hey, why don't you put the project lying a little bit further up, following some performance best practice rules, etc. So yeah, definitely worth taking a look at. Great project. As soon as it's finished and we'll go full into production, we'll have Ugur talk a little bit more about the inner workings of this KQL Search version 2. Good. And yeah, this, to be honest, probably for those that did the KQL detective and are already at that stage, might know a little bit more. We looked at it, Danny and I, but we felt like, okay, let's not get ourselves into trouble. So the only news we have here is, hey, be aware there's a new operator, graph operators. It's not about graph like graphics or show you something, but it's around, you can utilize this probably for threat hunting. And yeah, without getting onto ICE, I'm not going to mention anything more because I hadn't had the time to look into it. But
the idea is that you can graph your data and then relate it to each other. So you should be able to correlate maybe user patterns or process patterns or network patterns and compare against those. But like Alex says, we have ideas, but we haven't have time to build the queries yet.
If I may just add to this, that the graph operators implementation in the KQL world is rather out of my mind, because you don't need to know the depth of your graph levels. You can just ask, give me some place in the tree where this condition applies, and then it will show you the path to that level, and also, if you wanted, show the entire path of what is happening underneath that condition. So that is quite unique to the KQL implementation of graph queries. So yeah.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to build some new world use cases. Good, let's move on.
So identity info. It's a while ago. Sema, he posted about enhancing the identity info, and a couple of weeks ago this went live. And this is the further integration between the data from Azure, which was already in Defender, and now the on-premises data. So these new columns in the IdentityInfo Table get pulled from the Defender for Identity agent or sensor, however you want to call it. And it will get updated at least every 24 hours if the records exist, and 24 hours so they can keep track on if the record is new, if it's old, if it's changed, then it will pull it. We already had the department field, and now we have the manager field. So maybe if a manager from an IT teams has maybe a team of developers, IT and security, we used to create, for instance, a detection. If the IT team uses Nmap, then we wouldn't create an alert on it. But if someone in accounting did, so instead of creating departments, you can use it for managers. So it can make it a bit easier. And also the source provider from where the source of the identity is coming from. You have Azure AD, you have AD, and also the hybrid one is where it gets synchronized from AD to Azure AD. It's also here in the text or explained on the forum, but it's nice to know that you know where an account is coming from. because in the end you can also monitor on well, sources of identity. So for instance, you usually create identities with a tool with Director. Then you can accounts are always coming from your on-premise as well. Maybe another tool will spawn accounts from Azure AD, and then you can monitor for creation in local. Those are good things to know. Also, change sources. If something gets changed, then you should see it there. You are now able to see the tags where you put from the Defender for Identity portal. So if you create in the portal groups of tags, then you should also see it in your advanced hunting. And the same with the assigned roles, which is quite cool. Let me just show it for a second.
Maybe what's important to note here, we're not talking about the IdentityInfo Table in Sentinel. And personally, for me, that's still a little bit confusing because this table doesn't get synced one-to-one if you use raw log forwarding into Sentinel. So this is purely a table that exists in Defender 365.
So for instance, now you have the assigned roles over here. You have some quite new fun columns to play with it. That's nice. That's the identity info. Then I have a short slide about the query times. So what it is when you're creating detections, you often want to see how would my query perform in a certain situation, or what happens if I, for instance, use a PowerShell to grab several snapshots in 24 hours or even in a month to see how would a detection land in a certain environment. And you can also use it in ADX if you want to play around a bit with times and moments. So let's just grab Sentinel. Haven't got that open yet, but let's do it here. So, for instance, we have. Do we have a cool event? Yes, let's go back. Logs. Take 10. I believe I still have some strength location. I don't have it anymore, but summarize min time. See if I have some nice demo data to show here. No. Then let's just do it differently. Min time. Okay, so my earliest log is, it's not that old. That's better, but not what I expected. Anyway, if we wanted to see what happened in a certain moment, and if I would run a detection, for instance, in the beginning of August, I would say set query now, date, time, and then I like to do it 2023-08-01-0000. There are several ways how you can create this date. I like to do it like this. And we would say where time generated between ago one day. I should have copy pasted this from the show notes. So over here, we see what's happening now is we see that it's running from now. In this case, we set it in the query to here. Thank you, Alex. So in this case, we can see what's happened on this specific date. So if you're working with a record or with an instance, you can easily hunt for it. And also you can select one of these lines and then use the graphical Sentinel notation. And then you can also hop to that specific point in time. So if you're doing incident response or if you're doing hunting, just grab the time and then paste it in here, and then you're good to go. We can also do now. I think it's I go minus 1 day. And then you have the 4th, the 3rd, and the 5th. So that's an easy way to use this. And also, if you use the rule builder in Sentinel itself, let's see, edit. You have the tester over here in the set rule logic. This will actually do the same with the query, so it's enumerating through time to see if it happens. So you can also use it, for instance, with PowerShell. If you have an idea about a detection, you can run your KQL query against the API and run it for the last 1 day, 30 days, even a year, just to see what would have happened if you had this query before. If you have any anomalies, any incidents, maybe some backup program runs and maybe you get a whole storm of alerts. Then this is a way to do it, and it's quite easy, and it's a good operator to know. And also there are a lot of set options in Log Analytics or in KQL which you can use. It's also fun because Alex explained that the set operator is documented under ADX. But if you look in the data under Sentinel or Azure Monitor, then it says you only have the let and the normal operators. So it's good to know. And also if you do sets, you have over here, you have some operators which you can use. Python debug. Well, we have some nice, cool things to play with.
Yeah, so if it works, that's nice. Yeah, when I went to the documentation for Azure Monitor, it says not supported, but apparently, at least in Sentinel, it's all over the place. You will also notice nice thing from Johnny when you look into a security incident in Sentinel. You go to the events where you can actually, show the events that generated the incident. You will notice that they're at the top of the code. In addition to the original query rule, you will often see exactly this set variable with a specific date time when the event actually took place. So, and that definitely makes sense, because if you look like, hopefully not, but 4 weeks later at a security incident, last thing we want to do is get, the query would need to run like last 90 days. So by this, we're basically going back in time and setting basically a time pointer to, look exactly at that time. And then just run the query as it was, designed to. Yeah, definitely a very cool trick. I wasn't aware of, but we'll definitely use. Good.
I think we're now at the most important slide of the day.
Yeah. So without further ado, Brian, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, both of you. And I'm thrilled to be here. Yes, my name is Brian. I'm the guest of this KQL Cafe, and I'm the principal and enterprise architect of Fellowmind in Denmark. I'm a MVP on data platform and also a fast track recognized solution architect on Power BI, along with certified trader. So I do some blogging. You can find it here, and also I'm active on LinkedIn. And if you scan this QR code, you will be directed to my LinkedIn profile. So that is an easy peasy. Today's topic I suggested to both Johnny and Alex quite a time back, and that was a somewhat new thing at that point about the possibility to run your KQL statements directly from a Jupyter notebook. It was released on the feature was released more or less around the Fabric release, but it also works outside of Fabric. So I have a couple of demos brought in today, and we are just going to talk about it briefly and have a discussion. And perhaps I can let's start by doing a quick demo on how does these things work. So if I can share my it must be this one. Are we up and running? I guess so. Here I have just a Jupyter notebook in my Azure Data Studio. It is hooked up to the Python 3 kernel here. And what I've done, what you need to do, that there are some prerequisites here. You need to first of all install the KQL Magic to your Python kernel. You do that by the pip command. I've already done this, but once I run this, it downloads the KQL Magic from the NuGet server, and here I'm getting a requirement already satisfied because I already did this. That's fine. But you will get a complete different set of results when you do this. It's quite long. There you go. And once you have installed it, you don't need to reboot your Azure Data Studio. You can run this command, reload the external tool of KQL Magic, and if I do this, then it will run for some time. Sometimes it takes 20 seconds for some reason, and sometimes it goes like this, and that's fine. Once you see this blue screen, not a blue screen of death, but a blue screen, this is a positive blue screen, and you are ready to work with your KQL Magic inside the notebooks. A use case for the notebooks here could actually be that you have all your Sentinel queries that you used to run, you save them in a notebook, and then you can just share them and you can execute them in the order that you need. It could also be for data analytics, for machine learning, for whatever need you have to execute your KQL commands towards your KQL database, either if it is Sentinel, a Azure Data Explorer, a Fabric KQL database, or whatever KQL source you have. And yes, there are different ways of this resource screen changes over time. When I started this, I only got this one. Now I also get this to help me update the install package. And from, I think it was last week or something, I also saw this one to a small help on how do I get started and what is new inside the KQL Magic tool. So now I have the tool installed. Now I also need to connect to a KQL cluster, either Sentinel or ADX or Fabric. I can do this in different ways. Here I have one with a pop-up approach where I'm getting a pop-up for my authentication. I need to type in the cluster and the database, of course. I could also do this with an application key if I have one. Then I won't get a pop-up. Or if I'm lazy for a demo, I can just connect to the help cluster from Microsoft. It is free of charge. And if I run this, then I should, I need to copy this and open, just click this and open it, and I will be redirected in my browser to this place. Then I paste the code here, remove the blank space, click next, and then I just sign in with my AD account. For some reason I have MFA, so just hang on. Hang tight. I'll just type in the number 12.
You can also disable MFA, right?
Yeah. I could do that, but yeah. Yes. So now I'm signed in and I can close this. Let me move it out of the way. And it just looks like, well, what happened? Well, if you signed in and you got the splash screen okay from Microsoft, then you are good to go. So now I can begin, and I know that in the help cluster here, I have access to the New York City taxi. So in order to query my custom database, I can just now write the KQL Magic with the 2 percentages and then KQL, and then begin to write my custom queries as I would any other query. So for the demo purposes, come on, there you go. I'm summarizing the trip count by hour of day, and then I can also use all my renderings that I could in any other version of KQL. I can also use that inside my notebooks now. So I'm getting a bar chart now of trip count by pickup time. I can see there is a peak around evening and also a drop around the morning. So that's what we could expect of a taxi ride. Of course, I can also render a time chart as I would any other things here. So I see the same kind of data here, just rendered in a different way. The effective and the blazingly thing here is that the KQL is still giving me the results extremely fast, even though I'm using a notebook. That is, of course, because the KQL is query folded back to the KQL engine, and then the engine does all the computing for you. So, but what if I were to do my KQL data and here I have it just in a table, and then I would like to use it in another data frame inside my Python notebook? Well, that is also applicable, because there is a default. Once I have executed my KQL statement here, I can reference that cell with a built-in command called _KQL raw result .to data frame. If I run this, if I just remove this one, go, it just goes, and if I add a new one, it comes up. Then I just go df and I run this. Then now the data has been loaded into a standard Python data frame that I can do with whatever I want. So what could be the next level of this? Well, Microsoft has already done made a demo for us. You can find it here. So I have not done this, but I know what it does. Here now I'm starting to mix my Python skills with my KQL skills. So I can start to build a machine learning model in Python based on my KQL data. I'll just show this. So I'll start by importing my NumPy and my pandas, and also install the scikit-learn and the matplotlib and other stuff that I need. I don't need to run these two because they are already up and running, but I do need to connect to my KQL cluster here. Go. Hello? Am I doing something wrong here? Let's hope this works. Am I already connected for some reason? I was okay. I'm already connected, but here I would expect a pop-up again to sign in to my KQL cluster. Here I just ran my KQL statement towards the trips to table, and that is what I will be able to find here. Here are my trips to data, and if I do the same thing here, trips to, if I choose this right, there you go. I run this over here. There you go. Oops. Let's see. I get the exact same numbers here. Can I zoom this a bit? Oops, there you go. Around 234 million. And if I do the same thing here, I get the exact same number. So I'm getting the right amount of numbers here. Again, I can also do this with comments, because this comment will now be saved in my ADX cluster as a comment inside my query. So also the comments I'm doing in my Python notebook is also traversed back to the KQL engine. And that's just fine. This is just a bar chart. Sorry, a time chart of the runs. These are just to show you that I can also begin to work with latitude and longitude at my geospatial powers of KQL. And in order to do the machine learning model, I will now set some boundaries to find where is the New York City taxi main areas in order to filter out all the outliers here. So I'm putting in latitude and longitudes for south, north, east, and west. I've done this, and here I'm building a standard functionality to get my ADX query as a parameter, because I need this to build my machine learning model. Here I'm loading data to my machine learning model with into a data frame with a ADX query of Q, and Q is set to my ADX query. So now I have the data in my pickups, and just to show you, come on, go now. Sometimes we have to wait because this is still running. Sorry, I should stop this. Stop. This is for some reason still running. There you go. Oh. Let me run this again. It runs. Let me run this. What's happened? This worked half an hour ago. Am I missing something here? I don't know. But this should load the data between January 1st, 2014 to December 12th. Sorry, December 31st, 2013 into my data frame called aggregated pickups. Come on. Why are we waiting for this? You should not. And the variables I just showed you, the north, east, south, and west, is put in as a let in engine here to filter my my latitude and longitude on the pickup places. There you go. And now I should be able to print it there. Now I have my aggregated pickups places in order to find out where are my most in a heat map, my red areas of my taxi. And now I can adjust the graphics, and here I should be able to draw a plot. There you go. I've inverted the colors here because it is more easy to see on the screen. Now I see New York City, but there is no map. There is only plots of where are my taxis trips started. Where are the pickup places? Because it's quite wide around here and also in the middle of New York City. But where are my actual center of heat? Where are the most pickup places done? If I then run this.
Quick question.
Yeah, sure.
So, just for the audience, I guess I know the answer, but I mean, until now, there was like, oh, okay, I can do that in Sentinel. Why would I have to go to Python? This is actually cool, but I guess that doesn't happen just automatically. We need some additional modules to be available.
Yes, we need the modules here, the NumPy, the pandas, and the scikit-learn. and also the matplotlib. The matplotlib draws out the map for me based on geospatial data. So the matplotlib here is drawing out my white dots, not on a map, but just on a black screen, and then writes the dots based on latitude and longitude.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Cool.
Good question. Let me see. Where are we? This executed. Yes. And this is data science. I won't go through what's happened here, but I'm using a clustering functions to find out where are my most red areas in my pickup areas in center of New York City. And I'll just put in a few more variables, and in a few seconds you will see. There you go. I put in a red star, but now I see, based on the heat, I see the size of the star, and I can now see my what this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's also one here. 8 most heat up areas of New York City where the pickup locations are. This might seem quite simple to do right now, but think of the use case where you have the exact same information, but on a network traffic, on a firewall traffic, or something where you need to find out from where are my attacks coming from, to what network point are my infiltration ending up, using perhaps the new graph feature, and then you can start to figure out, okay, what kind of laptops or devices on my network are infected based on this. These are taxis. It could be viruses. It could be events on other things. But just to show you the power of, if you know Python and you are beginning to learn your Custo, then you can join the two and get great effort, great results out of very small effort. And once you have it, save it as a notebook with good comments, and then you can just reuse it over and over again. Perhaps with the reuse of data frames inside Python, and perhaps also share the notebooks between the people in your organization. So if you need it, I can provide you with the links to these notebooks in my GitHub account, and then you can just try that. It's free to use.
Very cool.
Yeah. I have also tried to hook up to a Sentinel workspace for this, and it also works. You just need to get the Custo address of that database. Perhaps if Johnny or Alex, do you have a Sentinel you can show people where to find the Custo connection string?
Yes, it should be.
Or if you're already well informed around the Sentinel, perhaps you already know how to find it. But
are you referring to the log analytics workspace keys, or?
Yeah, just the connection string.
We have this.
I'm not a world champion in either log analytics or Sentinel, so perhaps you guys could help me there.
Well, I will go to settings. Yeah, workspace settings. If we talk about the same workspace settings, yeah, again, probably under agents. I mean, let's call it the old way, bottom up agents.
Agents.
Yeah, would you be looking for the log analytics if you expound that below? If you expound below, yeah. Are you looking for those type of things, or?
I was actually looking for, the workspace ID. The workspace ID, then you can connect to log analytics using your workspace ID and your keys, and then you are in your workspace from your notebooks.
Okay, now Johnny has to regenerate his keys as he's showing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So the good news is they are long enough, but if you hover over the thing, then it will show it here. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but once I saw that I was able to put my KQL ninja tricks into a Python notebooks, then I begin to realize what kind of feature set I was given. Why with the join of both Python, with all my MATLAB and my visualizations and machine learning data science effects, spiced up with my KQL data, and then I have an extremely effective way of working with my KQL data and sharing what I'm doing with other people.
So you can connect your Sentinel directly, so you don't need any Mystic Pi or any other.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not a world champion to Sentinel, so I hope you people know how to do this. But there is a connection string, and then you should be able to connect to it.
Cool stuff.
Yeah. Do we have any? There is a comment there. Getting kicked out here. We'll watch for. Oh, okay, that was just a comment. Okay, so that was what I had to bring to the table today. I don't know if there are any questions or comments. Then please keep it coming, or we can move on.
Yeah, how do you use Jupyter in your daily life? What are your use cases or scenarios that you encounter?
Well, first of all, I use Jupyter because I'm a data platform guy, so I use it for data manipulation, data wrangling, and so forth. But I also need to sometimes I'm using it for my data science tasks, because I can save what I do and what I figure out how to do it. I can save it and then share it with my clients or inside my team. I can also use it for storing my notebooks inside Fabric, because that's also a feature now, and then I can execute it from there. So I use notebooks and Python quite a lot now. So I'm still learning though, but it's okay.
Now, if we are in Sentinel land, actually there's this notebooks thing, where basically the idea is that you deploy VMs, in Azure, of course, because now you showed us, what you do locally. I mean, can you tell us a little bit about, when is it a time that you actually will have, or you should move from running your Python stuff locally versus hosting that in Azure? I would assume performance-wise or certain capabilities. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, from a data perspective, I would actually run my notebooks in Azure all the time, because then I will not have to download data to my local machine. I can run it in Azure in a web browser, just without transferring data down to my local machine. So I would always, or not always, but if I could, then I would do it online, of course, because then the data stays in Azure and I don't have to download it. If there are special cases while I'm doing some special engineering with pandas or Python or whatever tool I'm using, I've found that doing it locally gives me somewhat more flexibility, because sometimes there is a library not available in Fabric or in Azure. Then I have to find that, whereas I know what library I have locally. So there is it's like walking on a knife's edge, where I like to work online because I don't have to download data, and on the other hand, I also like to work locally because I know what libraries I have. So it is a choice, I know, and it's not hard, but yeah, I prefer working online. Also, given that the amount of data pulled out of a KQL instance is not small, right? It is quite. It can be quite huge volumes. So
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. What about you guys? Are you also working online or downloading or?
to be strictly honest, I did once go through the tutorials. So from Sentinel, you can also jump into the notebooks, as it's called there.
Yeah.
But I haven't applied it to my daily work, etc.
Okay.
Probably more because I should learn a little bit more about Python and those type of things. So yeah, maybe you can also take a little bit the scare away. I mean, Jupyter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it has Python in your words, but I mean, tell us maybe a little bit. How much Python do I actually need to know to get along with Jupyter notebooks?
Python is a quite it is a quite approachable language to learn. It is for some people used to doing .NET or SQL or something other, also PowerShell. It can be quite frustrating because an indentation is a loop. You don't have to write a loop; it is just an indentation, and then you can be quite frustrated when you can't figure out why your script is not working, and then you just forgot the indentation. But that's just what it is. But I would encourage all people to just try Python out. It is not that hard. You can do a lot of data science things with a few lines of code. I had a colleague, an ex-colleague, who had a master's degree in mathematics, and she could do things in Python in one line of code that I needed 20 lines of code. But it is just to try to tell you that you can do what you need to do in Python. It is a matter of Googling, or as Bert-Jan says, ChatGPT and Bing. Exactly, and then you have a baseline to build upon. And there is a huge community around Python and the way that those things work, because Python is beginning to evolve in all the institutions for learning mathematics and data science and also data engineering. Python is a powerful tool, and if you don't know, you can. I think I haven't done it myself, but I have seen real applications and also games built directly inside Python. So it is a powerful tool, and if you're into data science, well, perhaps you know R and other scripts, but Python is quite powerful to do that. Yeah, that exactly. I've only scratched the very, very, very close surface of Python in this demo, but it is quite powerful. So I would encourage everyone to start it out. And there's also is there a gamification for Python to learn it? I think I've stumbled upon that a few. Yeah.
You have exercism.io where you have like about 150 exercises.
Yeah, exactly.
You can build small things, and then there are also others. But in the end, also Jupyter, it comes from Julia, Python, and R. So those three are the main supported languages.
Yes.
But then if you run it in VS Code, you can basically also run PowerShell in combination with the notebook. So you can play a lot around with it.
Exactly. And that was also because when you run it locally, you can just add a new module or add a new external module, and then you're good to go. Whereas if you're doing it in the cloud, you need to figure out to ask your cloud administrator, hey, can I add this module? Hey, can I use this tool? But when you are local, you can just do it. So what is Schröder saying? Just yet use ADX for the gamification learning experience. Yeah, Coastal Detective Agency. Yeah, if you would like to learn KQL, please go through the Coastal Detective Agency. And if you haven't started it, start at season 1, because there's a history there. You need to start at page 1, not at page 200. So yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
But also the last thing about Jupyter, there's a lot of cool modules from Python which you can use. I once built some reporting tool over the Defender stack, where I use, for instance, Bokeh for anomaly detection, but you also have the Plotly Express, where you can draw heat maps quite easily also on data. So you can make graphs of when did incidents trigger during which weekdays or which hours. And you can have a nice heat map saying, hey, on every Wednesday is the peak of your incident spree. So then you know then people should be more alert. And there are also a lot of forecasting and anomaly detection modules in there. And also the Mystic Pi module is quite good. They have a lot of functions where you can play even more in notebooks.
Exactly. Yeah. And notebooks is more and more being implemented in Azure in different SaaS solutions. And with notebooks, you are also getting Python with it. So yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, I guess one more example how KQL can be applied and used in many ways.
Yeah. I just saw, I attended SQL conference in Hanau last week, and I saw run from the CAT team at ADX showing the ability to track airplanes live, and he drawed the 747, the last air trip for the 747, the Queen of the Air. He drew that on a map live, and then when you saw the airplane route, it drawed out a Queen's
Crown.
what's that called? Crown. Thank you. And with the 747 underneath, and then he flew home. So yeah, you have a powerful tool in KQL. So
good. And many thanks for presenting and
sure.
Bringing the topic of Jupyter notebooks a little bit closer to our audience. Yeah.
And I just ruined your afternoon, so that's fine.
No, I don't think so.
I need to learn new stuff.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, endless learning, right? Just a question, where do I put my weight and my focus? As I mentioned, I mean, spent endless years on PowerShell. By the time I found I can use that, I figured out that a lot of things I can now do with KQL, and I don't need PowerShell anymore.
Exactly.
There are some overlaps. And then, of course, when you see those cool things like Jupyter, of course, in the very end, the day has 24 hours, and you have to balance. There's also, again, depending on your needs and your use cases, where you invest, etc.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, I would think definitely people that need to do data science. Definitely cool that we now can bring the data that we might already have in Azure Data Explorer, or for security people in Sentinel, to mingle that with the possibility of Jupyter notebooks.
Exactly. And the thing is, perhaps you already know this, but if you don't have the data in ADX already, you can just put in an external table to extract it from an S3 in Amazon or a blob store or something, and then use the ADX engine to maintain that. So.
Cool. Okay, then I suggest we continue with our last piece of the session. Thanks again, Brian. And then we have our, what did we do with KQL this month? So what we see here is, for those familiar with the matter, Defender 365, we have this thing called attack disruption. Defender 365 has learned enough in the last couple of years that we now allow it to make its own decisions. Personally, I think this is a good move. I think if we ask people, like, you can turn this on if you like, people will rather be hesitant. But now, when there's enough evidence, Defender 365 is going to help us and, for example, disable an account. Now, what I noticed in a few cases where this actually happened is that while Defender does its thing, at the same time, that user might call the help desk and say, my account is locked, and In the worst case, the help desk is going to unlock his account. So, and the help desk also might not have access to Defender to actually be aware that there's an incident going on. So if we go to the next page, it's a proof of concept, and I still have to validate it, but I run this in a couple of tenants where I know that there was an automatic action triggered by attack disruption. And if that's the case, and important here, if I have my Defender for Identity configured to use the system account and not another account, in that case, the actor will always be the name of the domain controller. So what I've done here, I basically borrowed the domain controller query, so to identify all domain controllers, and then basically I go to the identity directory events where there's an action of account disabled. And then if that actor device is actually matching with my domain controller, I believe, I'm still in testing mode, that I can be pretty sure that that this was an automatic attack disruption activity. And the idea is to then think of maybe notifying the relevant people, like a help desk, that this account was disabled on purpose. Exactly. Of course, don't use those where time generated in your detection query. You would, of course, remove that. But I've used this to run this query among a number of tenants to actually see the historical data. And I then went into the Action Center to actually validate whether there was a match, what I saw in Action Center versus what I saw in the log data. So yeah, that's what I've done. Next one.
All right, it's typing. See if it's related to this slide. What if the attacker is using a DDC to disable the account? Sitting on the DC server.
Well, I hope that by then I have other signals. That's my lazy answer. That.
So if the DC is compromised, that the actual action was triggered by whatever you filter here with the second last line.
Yeah.
But Jan says Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Yeah.
Too late anyway. Yeah, nice.
No,
DC compromises are fun to handle.
I'm also playing with, actually not looking at actor device, but actor user, and then looking at the, action account. So just in case someone has configured an account instead of the system account. I'm also looking into when someone manually, in the portal says disable account, because that's also passed. Unfortunately, right now I don't see like, okay, it was Gianni who pushed that button. But yeah, time will tell. Still digging into this, but yeah, this is use case number 1. Yeah. Good. Let's move on. What else do we have?
The slider one.
Yeah.
What it is, you have we discussed the Azure Resource Graph monitoring, and when it came out, I was thinking, yeah, it's a cool idea. You have all these new resources, and you can map things. And then all of a sudden, I was looking at the data, and at first I was thinking, how can I map this? Where does it link to? And I started playing with the secure scores one, so I wanted to enrich detections with secure scores. So if a detection was coming from a system which wasn't patched or which has some issues, then it might be a more important alert. So I was playing with that, and then all of a sudden I was thinking, there's this slider in Azure AD or Entra ID nowadays, where you can grab root management through all your resource groups and become owner, or make yourself owner, and then in the end you could compromise or create new accounts or do all sorts of fun stuff. So I was thinking, well, this should be notable through the Azure Resource Graph, and it did. So let me grab my Sentinel instance again. And it's so let's just load this for a second. And also just to validate this role ID is the built-in role for the user access administrator. Should be. But
it's in one of the last lines. Role name.
So over here we have the user access administrator, and there you can user access administrator. It's this space. Okay, check. So here you can do anything, manage authorization. As it says, manage user access to Azure resources. And in the past, one of the MVP, Sami Lampu, created some other detection methods to do this, but then you had to set up, I believe it was the MCAS or the Defender for Cloud Apps to monitor this behavior. And now we can look in Sentinel. And over here we can see that the specific role got assigned. Over here we have the role ID, which we're looking for. And we know that a user got elevated to that permissions. Still.
But in all fairness, we have to say, as long as we cannot create detections in Sentinel with these resource types, of course, probably still have to use the alternative methods. Because nobody's gonna run queries manually.
You can make it a logic app and then send it an email, or nowadays from logic apps you can also spawn incidents from there. So that would be an option. But then again, I think if I would have to make something, or would I make a notebooks, or maybe look into a friend of mine recently talked about Streamlits, where you create a web application with Python and with where you can also make quite nice dashboards. And also the fun thing is I was looking into Streamlit. It's a way to create and share data apps. And the fun thing is also they tell people that they have a really good integration with language models, so they should be able to ask ChatGPT, hey, create me a Streamlit for this, and then it should magically create everything for you. But it's still one of the many fun projects we can look into. Do you have any experience, Brian, with Streamlits by any chance?
Streaming data?
The Streamlits, it's a web module for Python.
No.
Okay,
no,
check.
No, sorry.
Oh, no problem. It's, one day we'll do a session combining KQL with Streamlits.
Oh, I'll be there.
Cool.
I got time.
Nice. Perfect. So that's my one of the things I was playing with this month. And then I think we're if anyone has any questions, we're all good for the day.
Yeah, so many thanks for those who joined. And otherwise, thanks for watching the replay. And we're looking back to next month. As always, www.kqlcafe.com. You'll find the updates. The show notes are already there. We've made some changing plans rather than writing them afterwards, which never happened. We're now trying to write them up front. So there are all the things, or almost all the things that we showed today. You should be able to find them there.
Just Johnny's queries will get there soon.
Yeah. Soon, like let. How was that let statement? Okay. No, set statement. Yeah. Okay. Good. Many thanks, and see you next time. Bye bye.
Thanks for watching and thanks for joining.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye bye.